Hey, Ryan Reynolds here. Wishing you a very happy half-off holiday because right now Mint Mobile is offering you the gift of 50% off unlimited. To be clear, that's half price, not half the service. And Mint is still premium unlimited wireless for a great price. So that means a half day, yeah? Give it a try at mintmobile.com/switch.
Upfront payment of $45 for 3-month plan, equivalent to $15 per month required. New customer offer for first 3 months only. Speed slow after 35 gigabytes if network's busy. Taxes and fees extra. See mintmobile.com.
Save over $200 when you book weekly stays with Vrbo. This winter, if you need to work, why not work from a chalet? If you haven't seen your college besties since, well, college, you need a week to fully catch up in a snowy cabin. And if you have to stay in a remote place with your in-laws, you should save over $200 a week. That's the least we can do. So, you might as well start digging out the lawn johns, because saving over $200 on a week-long snowcation rental is in the cards. Book now at Vrbo.com.
50 years in the Lone Star State, a one-stop shop so you're never late. Price is so low that you want to know
which way to Specs.
Come on, let's go.
Specs Wine Spirits and Finer Foods. World-class service, that's all about you.
Shout Specs, it's how we do. A huge selection since 62. Shout Specs, low priced, amazing. Here's to you.
Shout.
Cheers to savings.
This is Kent Hance, best storyteller in Texas. Saying of the day is opportunity is always there. You got to be listening for it to knock. There's always some opportunity available. And I tell my students, that the old saying, you take a lemon, you get a lemon, turn it into lemonade. And so you can take a bad situation and make it something that's really positive. I had a good friend at Texas Tech, a guy named Bill Walker. His nickname was Fastball Walker. And that's an unusual name, but in his obituary in the Lubbock paper, it said Bill Fastball Walker had died. And that a lot of people wouldn't have known who he was if we hadn't put Fastball in there. They didn't know his name was Bill. Mm-hmm. And when my son was in college, he met a girl from McKinney, Texas, where Fastball lived. And she said, your dad's good friends, Mr. and Ms. Walker. And he said, what's their name? And he said, Mr. and Ms. Bill Walker. And he said, I don't know who that is. And he just tell me. I said, that's Fastball. He called the girl back and said, I just didn't know his name was Bill. And but he was a great guy. He got out of college and went into the Air Force and qualified as a pilot and was flying T-38s at Reese Air Force Base in Lubbock. And they noticed that in the bottom quarter of his vision in his right eye, he was missing certain things. So they sent him through all kinds of tests and came back and said, you got early stages of MS. And which, washed him out of the Air Force. And he became a counselor, got his master's in counseling, worked at Austin College in Sherman. Great school. That's really a fine, small liberal arts school, one of the best in the country. And he drove. He still had a license there for a while, but he put a sign on his car that said, I am blind. And people would get out of his way, and they'd cut him a lot of slack. And he was Austin College with another friend of mine that's deceased, a guy named Jim Rolfe, R-O-L-F-E. And President Reagan appointed him as U.S. Attorney for the Northern District of Texas. And he's a great lawyer, great prosecutor, and later did a lot of criminal defense work after he got out being the head of the U.S. Attorney's Office. That's a position very few people know much about, but each district in a state, Texas has 4 states named after 4 directions, and a U.S. attorney will be appointed by the president, and they'll go through a screening process by the U.S. senators. And if a U.S. senator doesn't want one, he just tags him, puts a blue slip on him. That person's not going to get appointed unless the White House can get him back away. And so the problems come up for somebody that's trying to get appointed. If the White House is a Democrat and your senators are both Republican, then you may have problems, and they have to work out. There are times, no matter how hostile the White House and the Senate may be, they still have to work out on a lot of appointments and come up with somebody that they can both agree with. And that Biden would certainly have somebody a lot more liberal, but Senator Cruz and Senator Cornyn would have somebody a lot more conservative. You know, there have been people get nominated or get to the White House, and then they won't pass their background check, and that there was some flaw or some alleged incident that maybe the White House doesn't want to go through. You know, they want to. You get so many fights at the White House on appointments. You got to pick and choose. You know, if there's somebody you really want and you're going to go to the wall for, you have to push hard. And I think that you look at the Supreme Court, all that changed, you know, back in the 90s. Judge Bork was appointed by the president, and I think it's Bush, and boy, I mean, it was different than it had ever been, and it's never been the same. It was an all-out war, and they were able to defeat him. And if you look at ever since then, any Republican nominee has been hotly contested. Some of the Democrats have, but not as much. You know, Lindsey Graham, senator from South Carolina, he had some political problems in that he approved of some of Clinton's people, and he takes the position unless they have something morally wrong with them or they've done something that's totally unethical, then the president has the right to appoint who he wants, and you shouldn't fight somebody on their philosophy. And in fact, Lindsey Graham probably made the greatest speech of his life in the Kavanaugh hearing, and probably saved his reelection. And that was a hotly contested thing. I mean, they get to talking about, you know, they go back and look through your annual. You know, did he drink beer in high school? It's the appointment process is tough, and a lot of people, you know, they don't want to put up with it, and they won't go through it, and so you lose some people that normally would take a position, but they don't want to go through and listen to everything that they'd have to listen to. One of the things that the senators always ask and the White House ask, no matter whether it's Democrat or Republican, is there anything in your background that could embarrass the president or the senators? And, you know, there have been people say no, and it came out, the answer should have been yes. And, you know, it just, if there's something there that you think is insignificant, it doesn't mean that the public's not going to think it's significant.
Boy, you've got to be squeaky clean to go through that process.
In this day and time.
I mean, the information is out there.
Yeah, it's changed a lot. Used to, is, you know, whoever the president was, they figured that he got elected president, so they can have who they want. But that's just not, you know, Trump had some that he lost. Biden's lost a few that he had to withdraw. You know, it became apparent they didn't have the votes, and so he just withdrew. I think the deal on Kavanaugh was tough in that his daughters were there, and they were like, you know, 12 and 10 or something like that. And I mean, it was mean, it was brutal. And Kavanaugh's wife, Ashley, used to work for President Bush. I knew her when she worked for President Bush. I didn't know she'd married Kavanaugh. And they announced, I was watching television, they brought out Kavanaugh at the White House, and I said, it looks like Ashley, you know, standing next to him. And it was. She's a first-class lady. Really nice, from Abilene, Texas.
Is that right?
Yeah. Need more people from Abilene and Washington in any position. One of the things that I think is kind of funny, that every once in a while you'll have somebody just goes breezing through. And we've got a guy from Texas Tech, CQ Brown, and he goes by CQ. He grew up in San Antonio. His dad was a colonel in the Army, and he went to Texas Tech and graduated and got in the Air Force. and he is now secretary he's chief of staff. He's chief of staff of the Air Force. So he's the number one guy in the Air Force. He runs it all. And he is the first African American to ever head up a branch of the military, and probably has a great chance of being chairman or vice chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff. And he is a hard worker. He's a great pilot, good person, first class person. Everybody likes him. But he's strong, he knows what he's doing. But I laugh I look at CQ, and the people approved him. He got an approval from Bush. He got Obama, Trump, and Biden. And when he got named chief of staff for the Air Force, vote was 98-0. I bet you he hadn't served 2.5 years in any position. What happens in the military, that if they see you're a pretty good chance to be a 1-star or 2-star, then they're going to push you and put you all kinds of places. You're going to be moving every 18 months or every 3 years or something like that, because they want you to be well-rounded. There's not a position that he hadn't been in that something's not under his control. And so he was in good shape to become the chief of staff for the Air Force. And the military politics is there's politics in military. There's politics in everything. People say, I don't want to get in politics. Well, you're involved in politics. You work for a company. There's some politics going on about who's going to get a promotion and who's not, and things like that. But in the military, it's a deal that the chain of command. You have to respect that. I had the president of the Health Science Center at Texas Tech when I became chancellor was a guy named Bernie Mittermeier. And Bernie Mittermeier was the Surgeon General of the U.S. Army and ran Walter Reed Hospital for the Army in Washington, D.C. And when he ran, he always said, if you bring my name up, point out that there was a scandal there at one time. It wasn't on his watch. And so Bernie's up in his 90s, good guy, and does a lot for various causes for retired military people. And but he was a yes sir, no sir. And you told him kind of what you wanted to do, and said, can we do it? And he'd say, yes sir. Now let me point out the pluses and minuses. And he might, after he talked to you, you might say, Bernie, I think those minuses outnumber the pluses today, and let's go in a different direction. But he knew what he was doing. He was well trained, and military's helped a lot of people become highly successful. And we've got some graduates of Texas Tech that are females that are generals at this time and did well. But number one thing the military is created for is your national security. And sometimes they get off on other issues, but the main issue is keeping us safe. And that's important in this day and time. When you're in Congress, they always try to get you to visit everything they've got, so you'll like what you see and you'll vote for their appropriations. But I visited Minot, North Dakota Air Base. That's where they had the B-52s at the time. They had the bombers. There's always some flying with a nuclear warhead in case Russians or the Chinese get a little, now they're B-1 bombers. But they had pilots. All those pilots were older. The planes were older than the pilots. And but they take us up at Minot, and it was in late August, and it was raining, and it was like 42 degrees. And I said, what season's this up here? What are you this summer? And they said, you be here when we've had 15, 20 inches of snow, and it's minus 15 or 20 and blowing. And but Minot was one of the big bases, and they had a dinner dinner for anybody that visits up there. And I mean, the Chamber of Commerce, the local bankers, the school superintendent, they all turn out big because, I mean, that's a big part of their economy.
Sure.
And but it's needed, and so there's certainly justification.
You've done so many things. What is there one that, I mean, everything from landing on an aircraft carrier to meeting in the Oval Office to traveling all over the world, is there one that stands out as a memory or a person that you've met, a gift you've received, anything?
When I carried Reagan's tax cut, there was a state dinner for Anwar Sadat, and who was the president of Egypt, and I got invited. You know, Reagan, if you carried his bill, then he would make sure that you were at the next state dinner so that all the spouses would look and say to their husband or to their wife, whoever was serving, well, look, he got invited. He helped the president, and he got invited to the state dinner. You didn't get invited. But they'd give you a chance to attend. And I attended, and he had I'd befriended the Crown Prince of Iran when he was at Texas Tech taking flying lessons at Reese Air Force Base, when his dad, the Shah of Iran, was still in control in Iran. And he, I think back to that meeting, that dinner that night was just incredible. And you had President Sadat there, and he was a man that carried himself. You didn't have, when you went in a room, if he was in there, you didn't have to ask who was in charge. I mean, he was in charge. And I'd met him earlier in 1980. There was a group of Texas members of Congress that had gone to had gone to the Middle East. We were in Israel and Egypt and Lebanon. Had to go into Lebanon in a tank. Really? Yeah, so they didn't want one of us to get shot. It wouldn't look good. It might hurt their budget. And but we had Sadat invited us out to the Summer Palace, and it was he had his wife and children there, and that was in 1980. And then 81, I saw him at the White House. In 80, when I saw him, he said, I appreciate what y'all are doing for the Crown Prince, and he had problems when he had war with Israel one time, and only oil they could get was from Iran, and so he was going out of his way to try to take care of the Shah, and that's been it's been just what's happened in Iran is that people aren't in control, and they weren't under the Shah, and so they've been under a religious dictatorship, and so it's been difficult as far as freedom for individuals, and they've been under sanctions a lot, and sanctions, economic sanctions, hurt people and hurt countries. And so that's something the U.S. always has. They can put sanctions on somebody, and it really causes them problems.
Do the sanctions work? It seems like every time you turn on the news, there's a new sanction to a new country, particularly threats of them to Russia. Do they actually? Does Putin go?
No, they work. They cause them economic problems. You get the right sanctions on, and they're going to cause. People don't realize how powerful this country is. The United States of America is so powerful economically. I mean, we can. I think you look at what Trump did with China. I mean, he got their attention, and that they had not been treated that way. They had not. They were able to get by with whatever they wanted to get by with. But the sanctions are very powerful, and probably if it weren't for sanctions, the Russians would have already invaded the Ukraine. They're still looking at it, and it'll be this is a big test for Biden. He can't just get pushed over, and after the fiasco in Afghanistan, he's got to really make sure that he doesn't get run over.
And the Russians know that.
Russians know that, and I think they have to realize that they may test him, and he may go opposite direction, may give them some problems, and so we'll see what happens. But foreign power and president, LBJ used to say he could sneeze and the stock market would go down, and it they hinge on every word. Such a powerful position, and it's gotten more powerful in the last 60, 70 years. Presidents didn't have and didn't take as much power in earlier years, and Roosevelt changed that because he was in office so long, and then you had other people that were more aggressive. Eisenhower wasn't that way. He didn't use it like others. But Kennedy and Johnson, I mean, he fully, if he had, thing you remember about Lyndon Johnson, if he got a little power, he's going to use it all. If he got a power rating of 1 to 10, he got a 10, he's going to use 12 or 13. He's just, that's the way he operated. And he was, his greatness in getting things done, whether you liked or disliked what he got done, was that he knew how to work that Senate. He knew who was doing what, and he knew, who their kids were and how the kids were doing, and I mean, he knew all about them, and had been friends with them, and would just twist their arm to get them to vote for something that one of the senators one time said, LBJ will twist your arm so badly to get you to vote for something that you don't realize it didn't break your arm, but it ruins your career. If you want to read a book and it's not just an easy read, Path to Power by Robert Caro about LBJ is a very interesting book, and it goes into a lot of details. Well, I hope you enjoyed today's stories, and I hope you'll like and subscribe to the podcast, and also email your friends and text your friends and tell them to join.
Today, we'll attempt a feat once thought impossible: overcoming high-interest credit card debt. It requires merely one thing: a SoFi personal loan. With it, you could save big on interest charges by consolidating into one low fixed-rate monthly payment. Defy high-interest debt with a SoFi personal loan. Visit SoFi.com/stunt to learn more. Loans originated by SoFi Bank N.A., member FDIC. Terms and conditions apply. NMLS 696891.
Marketing is hard. But I'll tell you a little secret. It doesn't have to be. Let me point something out. You're listening to a podcast right now, and it's great. You love the host. You seek it out and download it. You listen to it while driving, working out, cooking, even going to the bathroom. Podcasts are a pretty close companion. And this is a podcast ad. Did I get your attention? You can reach great listeners like yourself with podcast advertising from Libsyn Ads. Choose from hundreds of top podcasts offering host endorsements, or run a pre-produced ad like this one across thousands of shows to reach your target audience and their favorite podcasts with Libsyn Ads. Go to libsynads.com, that's LIBSYN, ads.com today.